And welcome inside another edition of the Fox Weather ROWI podcast. This is a Friday edition. We're going to be looking ahead towards the weekend, some big matchups that are going to be impacted by the weather, and we're going to be taking a look back at what happened on Thursday night, where we had called it that the rain was going to have an impact in Florida. Welcome inside. Let's dive into the action. Okay, before we jump into the weekend, we got some big matchups, right? We're going to talk Bama going to Doak Campbell Stadium at FSU. We got the Fighting Irish going down to Hard Rock to take on the Hurricanes. But before we get into all of that, we are going to stay in Florida and talk about the Knights handling business. Not really well, I'll be honest with you. All right, that was kind of scary for a minute. All right, that's my alma mater. Love it, but concerns because Jack State was, toe-and-toe with them. But we were talking about the chance of thunderstorms setting up over the area for Acrisure Bounce House, and that ended up happening. We saw it in the second quarter. Thunderstorms close in. If it's within 8 miles of the stadium, they got to go into a lightning delay. What is a lightning delay? That means you have to wait at least 30 minutes since you've seen that last strike or at least heard it, and it's estimating out how far away it is until you can get back out there on the field. In total, it was over a 2-hour delay that they had. By the way, Jared and I had talked about this 48 hours in advance earlier in the week. We did a preview of this, and we had said this could actually be a good thing for UCF. The home team usually benefits that. You're a little more comfortable in your locker room. For me, I think it was something that changed the overall outcome of the game, because if you were watching early, Cam Fancher was having some good drives and then would make some bonehead mistakes, and that's because they got 63 new guys. I don't think they even know each other's first names right now. So with that break for 2 hours, I think they were able to get back in the locker room, settled down, looked at what worked, what didn't, and they came back out and they handled business 17-10. And we're going to have a fun question. Stick around at the end of this because UCF, they had a playlist jamming throughout that entire delay. So they had some fun, even though obviously the game was postponed. We'll dive back into that, but I really want to get into this weekend because we got some big matchups. We're talking about ranked teams. Bama coming in as a top 10 team into Doak Campbell Stadium. FSU obviously struggle like really bad. Like last year, horrendous. Talk about the biggest drop-off we've maybe ever seen in college football. And now they're coming back and they got an entire new squad. Mike Norvell, the head coach, revamped everything. He brought in Gus Malzahn. He's going to be running the offense there, and they got a new QB that they're feeling really good about. Let's dive into this game because I want you to see the forecast for this. Something we've been watching is the Panhandle of Florida, the I-10 corridor, right where Tallahassee is, and Doak Campbell Doak Campbell Stadium, right where it's situated. It's going to be energized. Now, what you're watching is leading up to kickoff. Remember, kickoff is at 3 p.m. So when we look at this, the concern is not about the storms ahead of the game. Now, it could dampen the field, but we're looking at throughout the game, especially the second half, do one of these rogue cells, right? There's those isolated pockets where you're seeing the red on the screen. That's a more unstable thunderstorm. That's one that's got a little more energy into it. Does that could create a problem? Kickoff is actually at 3:30 p.m. And so maybe a little bit damp, and something I was researching and getting on. I actually got some new turf at Doak Campbell Stadium, Northbridge Bermuda grass. It's a beautiful thing, okay? It's thick grass out there, and it's got a lot of sand underneath it. Why is that important? Because it's going to be able to keep the water that comes in during the game or even ahead of the game. It's not going to be sloppy out there, and they got a brand new irrigation system. So why is this all important? Because remember, rain is the great equalizer. When Jared and I were talking about this game, and Jared, come on, pop in, we were saying really the only chance that FSU had was if they had a big sloppy mess, because otherwise it seemed like Bama was just going to bulldoze them.
Yeah, I mean, like think back to the Bama South Florida game a couple years ago, where like South Florida stuck around that game way longer than they really should have. That was still with Saban.
Yeah.
And a very talented Alabama roster. Mm-hmm. And a South Florida team that was not very good was able to stick around for 4 quarters in that game. Now, granted, they looked pretty damn good last night, South Florida.
Oh, yeah. Dude, Byram Brown, 2023 self, it looked like. I mean, did you see that one run in the beginning of the game where he was just out there to hit everybody? He scored the touchdown.
He didn't need to do it.
He didn't need to. It was like a roller derby out. It was wild. USF handling business, by the way. Massive upset with Boise State. They didn't need the weather on their side. They just handled business.
Yeah, and with this here, like Florida State's still a fairly talented roster. They revamped the whole thing here. You know, you never know how good these teams are going to be in the new college football free-for-all transfer era.
Yeah.
I mean, you got 6 different teams with the number 1 overall vote. We really don't fully know who the best teams are.
And
so
a big,
if anything,
and a big thing too is what I mentioned with Gus Malzahn. I mean, he was at Auburn, right? He terrorized Saban. They won 3 times against Bama. He's going to bring that offense. It's a run-heavy option offense here. And if the thunderstorms do set up, we know lightning delays. We talked about it with UCF. This is the lightning capital of the country with Florida. But just the rain aspect of this, that could be a big component because Alabama, as amazing as they are, and as a number 8 team, but as you had said, it's still that uncertainty. They don't have their number 1 running back. Jam Miller is out with a shoulder injury, so they're going to have to rely on some guys that don't have a lot of touches. And so that's something to watch is if the game plan changes a little bit and gets run heavy, which we know the Bama coach has already kind of practiced for, does that give FSU a chance to hang around and make some noise and maybe pull off an upset?
I'm still picking Bama on this one here, but maybe...
Yeah, look, I'm trying to sell it, man.
Maybe you could do FSU against the spread. You know, I'm not a huge fan of the Seminoles, and honestly, if we're going to be real, the ACC has looked a little shaky early on too. You know, Stanford
you're not
dropping
a fan
Hawaii
because you like somebody a little further south.
I do like someone a little further south, but you know,
Yeah.
I need all in the modern era. You need your conference to do as well as it can in non-con. Florida
true.
State hangs with a big SEC opponent. It's just going to boost everyone's strength of schedule.
That's true. That's right. So you want them to hang around, and as you had mentioned too, like these are the games that they're going to look back in early in the season when they're making their decisions on who makes it into the playoff. And if Bama, ends up hanging really close to Florida State and they bottom out, it could change everything. So I also think this is a big benchmark for Florida State and Mike Norvell because it's like you were a great team, in 2023, and then 2024 completely fell apart. What's this year about? You brought in a lot of new acquisitions. Another big thing to talk about with head coach Kalen DeBoer, right, out of Bama. Obviously, this is his second year trying to replace Saban. That's a nightmare. That's going to be tough. But what I loved about this, and you and I were talking about it, I was like, okay, if there's rain, how are they going to adjust? He's already had the guys playing with not only wet footballs, but put a little bit of soap on there. Try to make it almost impossible to grip it so that they're prepared for this.
Yeah, it's something I wish my favorite pro team would do a little bit more. But no, with this here, Alabama preaches preparation. Saban is still in the building. He still has an influence there. That whittles its way all the way down, and they focus on it. It's a core institutional part. It's like, we're not better than the weather. We adapt to it. We adjust to it, and we want to be better fighting against it than our opponent.
Yeah. Getting back into what you had said, though, the spread, I think you're not alone. Everybody's choosing Bama. Joel Klatt, Fox Sports analyst, he said he's at Bama. He thinks they're going to win by 3 touchdowns, at least 3 scores. And he said this is going to be their beginning of their road to victory in a college football playoff. That's how confident he is. I'm actually going to go. I don't think FSU is going to pull off the upset, but I think they hang around. And I really do love the energy and the excitement of this. So I think they beat the spread. I believe it was at 18.5, right? That's where they were at earlier in the week, or it might have been in the lower 20s. We'll double check that here real quickly because that changes. By the way, that's why we give you that early outlook. And while we're giving you an update on the forecast is because early on, they're going to have a spread, and then that will tighten up as you get closer to the game. But overall,
we're about 2 touchdown spread across most books.
2. Oh, so they've lowered it. Ooh, that actually kind of changed it because I thought it was around 18. Where's it at? What's the what we're looking at? 15?
I mean, I can't give you specific sports books, but it's about 2 touchdowns.
2
between
touchdowns.
that 13-15 range.
Do they stay within 2 touchdowns? That's tough, man. Okay, don't put me on. This is Bender's bad beats again. I'm still going with FSU. I think they beat the spread.
I think I'm going to save you from this game. We got one more to talk about.
All right, yeah, let's get into it. We're going to head a little further south. Here's the reason why Jared doesn't like the Noles, because he's a huge Hurricanes fan. And so looking at this, they're obviously taking on the Fighting Irish, and it's at Hard Rock Stadium, a spot that's notorious for having bad footing. But I'll tell you this, I was doing some research again, and they, not only at Doe Campbell Stadium, have that turf, but they also have the new North Bridge Bermuda grass here at Hard Rock as well. So because of that,
very smooth,
right? I mean, there's something about new grass, whether it's in your lawn or just get into the game, it feels good. What you're watching, though, is the entire time there is rain at this game. So when we look at the risk of weather impact, obviously the precipitation impact, max out, 10 out of 10. Wind impact, that comes with the thunderstorms at times. Temperature impact is a sneaky one. Here's why. This is an evening game, but with that much humidity, I mean, you're going to have like 80% humidity, if not greater than that. It is going to stay warm the entire time. You got the Fighting Irish coming down here. It's early in the season. I think that could be a sneaky factor if the rain doesn't cool the atmosphere completely. But overall, I think it's the initial kickoff, because here's what happens in Florida during the summertime. You get the thunderstorms that fire up through the afternoon, and they last through early evening, because then once the sun comes down, you lose some of that volatility. It doesn't mean it's going to stop raining, but you lose that instability enough to trigger lightning, and I think you get to a game where you're going to be smooth sailing. So I think it's really from kickoff to halftime. That's the big question mark, and how much rain do they get ahead of the actual kickoff? By the way, the Fighting Irish coach, he came out earlier today, and he had said, we're not worried. We'll play in any weather. We're going to bring extra cleats down there. My guys are comfortable on grass, and they're going to bring extra cleats that have longer studs in them, so that way they have a better grip. So he's saying, I'm not scared of it. I'm not worried about it. We're going to handle business. So that's why I want to bring Jared back in, because it seems like the Fighting Irish are confident with their smackdown.
So I've gone back and forth about which team would benefit more from the rain, because Notre Dame, in theory, has a very, very nice defense. Miami, in theory, has a pretty good offensive line. Yeah. One thing I do want to say, though, to the forecast at this point, the lower level flow is mostly out of the west. So that sea breeze collision is probably coming on the eastern side of the peninsula, a little bit closer to Miami than if you had that flow out of the east instead. So we're really, even as this far out, a little worried about how bad it's going to be even pregame, during the game, because you don't want to mess up your pregame activities with all that going on there. Overall, it's the home team. The home team knows their stadium. Now, it's granted, I complain all the time about Hard Rock. It's a billion miles away from campus. It takes forever to get there. So it's like not as much of a home stadium as it is in other places. But it's going to be a packed house. The crowd's going to be rocking. If anything, it really should lean Miami, they'll get that energy back even with the rain or any possible lightning delay.
Yeah, I like Miami in this one. And that's not me being a Florida homer. I just feel like Miami is, and by the way, what a historic kind of rivalry. I was reading up on that leading into this, and I think they got something to prove. I think they're upset that they're, ranked 10th. And the Irish are above them right now. I think they got a chip on their shoulder. I think they're going to come out. But to your point with the weather, we talk about this, that if there's a clearing, then we start feeling better about the overall impact. But I think the amount of rain you have ahead of time, when you're talking about Florida-type rain, where it's torrential and they're dumping rain. By the way, at UCF last night, it was estimated that they got about 2 to 3 inches of rain there. And that's what led to that 2-hour delay with the lightning and stuff. The field held up. But if you get significant amount of rain leading up to the game, and even if it doesn't rain in the game, the footing, and it's just sloppy out there, I think, again, like you had said, the home team feels a little more comfortable on that. They're going to have the fans cheering them on. I like Miami in this one. So, but definitely one, as you had mentioned, even this far out, we want to be watching closely, because, Florida forecasts are a mystery at times when you're starting to look at how quickly these storms could set up.
And we got about 2 inches of precipitable water, which are very, very high values. So tons of potential for heavy rainfall, tons of potential for thunderstorms. And you get all that going on there, you can have a very disrupted day as a whole, even if parts of the game go okay, as it usually will, because we'll delay if there's any lightning till the end. We'll delay till the ROWI gets lower.
Yeah, now we got a big question, right? So let's say either of these games get delayed. What do you queue up on your playlist? This was a question that we saw posed to some of our people that were out there at the UCF game last night, because even though the game got postponed for over 2 hours, they had a playlist that was jamming in a lot of great songs. So I want to hear from you at home. What game or what song would you play if you were able to control the stereo at the stadium? Mine is going to be a sneaky pick, and obviously, Jared, I want to hear yours. Mine, I'm going country. I'm going a little bit old school. I'm going Thunder Rolls, Garth Brooks, because I love it. I love it when they hit the thunder and it goes crashing, and if I got the stadium on that, I think it's going to start shaking. When the thunder rolls.
I think country's a good one during the break, because you you want to save your true hype up stuff when everyone comes back. That's the most important role of the stadium operators there, is that when everyone's coming back in the village, you got to get people fired back in.
Yeah.
And, Miami is, of course, rock you like a hurricane from this. I'm sure if they do that, that may be the one getting played.
Okay.
Like, coming right back there. That's my prediction. If we have a lightning delay, the first song played coming back out of that will be Rock You Like a Hurricane.
I love it. Okay, so we want to hear from you. This was a special edition of the podcast. Wanted to give a shout out to Jared, of course, for jumping in, showing us not only what the forecast is evolving like, but showing us his fandom with the Miami Hurricanes. We want to hear from you, by the way. If there are some teams that you love and you want us to cover it as well, drop it in the comments below, and we will do our best. Enjoy the weekend. We're going to see you next week with Week 2 of college football, and also NFL is going to be back in action. There's going to be so much to talk about. We will see you then. Enjoy the weekend.